On July 27, 2022, Joe Burrow had an appendectomy. On the sports show PFT Live, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio remarked that the appendix was a useless organ. Now, Florio is not a doctor or a scientist, but his remark got me to wondering, is the appendix really useless? Or is it in that group of body parts that we can live without, like tonsils? In the dark ages that I lived through, the appendix was considered a vestigial organ, one of those things that nature never got rid of when it outlived its usefulness. But is the appendix really useless? Is its only purpose to make one's life miserable when it becomes infected and inflamed? I decided that this hot topic was worth investigating, so you don't have to. The appendix is a thin tubular organ that is about 4 inches in length. It descends from the cecum, a pouch connected to the junction of the small and large intestine. The cecum is responsible for absorbing fluids and salts that are left over after digestion. The location is in the lower right part of the abdomen. A side note, I'm really excited about this because this is the first opportunity that I've had to use this camera zoom pan function on my Doodly software. The first clue that you might have appendicitis is pain around the belly button. The pain starts out as mild discomfort and then progresses to a sharp pain. It may then spread to the lower right part of your abdomen. You may mistake the symptoms for food poisoning. What makes appendicitis problematic is that some people may not have all these symptoms, or the symptoms may come and go, and you may feel like you're getting better. If the appendix is inflamed, it is in danger of rupture, so it's considered a medical emergency. When inflamed, the appendix swells and can get to the point of rupture rather quickly since it's so small. A ruptured appendix can cause bacteria to leak into the abdominal cavity, causing the cavity to be inflamed and spread to the bloodstream. This leads to sepsis and can be fatal. The most common surgery is a laparoscopic appendectomy, which only takes a few small incisions near the belly button. A long, thin tube called a laparoscope with a camera attached is inserted in the incision so that the surgeon can see inside the abdomen. If your appendix has ruptured, you'll need an open appendectomy, as the surgeon will have to drain fluid from the abdominal cavity and flush it out. Unfortunately for Joe Burrow, his appendix ruptured. To illustrate how symptoms of appendicitis can vary, Joe Burrow had minor discomfort that he got checked out. A coworker of mine was out for 6 weeks with a ruptured appendix and got a ride in an ambulance. Time spent in the hospital is normally 1 to 2 days, and a recovery time of 2 to 4 weeks. But the real burning question is, does this little thing that can be so problematic and cause Joe Burrow to miss practice time in the preseason have a use? Obviously, like your tonsils, you can live without it. Surprisingly, research has showed that this little guy is not so useless after all. Research in 2017 suggested that the appendix is not just a vestigial organ, but may serve as a storage site for beneficial bacteria. Heather F. Smith, Ph.D., Associate Professor at Midwestern University, studied the evolution of the appendix in other species of mammals. Her research team studied 533 species of mammals with an appendix as well as those without one. By looking at the data on a genetic tree, they tried to determine why some mammals have an appendix and others don't. The research team found that the appendix has evolved in several mammalian lines and almost never disappears once it first appears. They found that these mammals have a higher concentration of immune tissue in the cecum. This suggests that the appendix plays a role as an immune system organ, stimulating the growth of and storing good gut bacteria. Another organ that a surprising number of people think is useless are tonsils and adenoids. Now, I still have my appendix, but got rid of my tonsils when I was 4. They were the bane of my tiny little existence. I ran high fevers and had throat infections as well as convulsions. Believe it or not, my mother had trouble getting a doctor to remove them. But what are they? Surely they're not there just to torture little kids. When someone is told that they're going to have a tonsillectomy or have their tonsils and adenoids removed, what they are really referring to are the palatine tonsils and the pharyngeal tonsil, which are called adenoids. Not all of your tonsils. So how many tonsils do we have? At least before the surgeon gets us. There are 6, or 4 types of tonsils. There are 2 palatine tonsils, which are the ones that people are referring to when they say tonsils. They are located on the left and right sides in the back of the throat. They are the tonsils that you see when you open your mouth, assuming you still have them. They are the largest in 3 to 6-year-olds and smallest in teen and adult years. The 1 pharyngeal tonsil, or adenoids, are located high in the throat and behind the nose. The lingual tonsil is composed of lymphatic tissue on the sides of the tongue at its base. The tubal tonsils are located posterior to the opening to the eustachian tube, a passageway that connects the throat to the middle ear and keeps fluid from building up in the middle ear. An enlarged pharyngeal tonsil or adenoids can contribute to middle ear and sinus infections as well as impacting breathing. There are various reasons why your tonsils may be removed. Tonsils and adenoids can cause snoring and blocked breathing during sleep. You may have frequent tonsil infections, which was what my issue was. Frequent is defined as 6 or 7 in 1 year, or 2 to 3 per year for more than a few years. Maybe that's why the doctors put my mom off. I just wasn't sick enough times, I guess. Complications of a tonsillectomy are uncommon. Even in my day, back in 1958, the only things I remember are the smell of the ether, watching Popeye in a room with a lot of other little kids, and getting all the ice cream I wanted. Recovery generally takes about 10 days to 2 weeks, and throat pain is a common complaint. Gee, I wonder why you would have a sore throat from this. So what are tonsils for anyway? Like the appendix, the tonsils are part of the immune system that serve as the first line of defense against inhaled pathogens. They filter viruses and bacteria from the air. Most of this purpose is served in early childhood. As one gets older, the palatine tonsils tend to shrink. My mother's disappeared. Studies show that removing the palatine tonsils does not affect the body's ability to fight infection. This is also true of the appendix. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. I must admit, I never knew that our appendix actually had a use. Remember to ring that bell, hit that like button, and subscribe to show this old girl you care.